So it's 11 o'clock at night, and I just saw a protest that there's going to be a general strike on August 9th. This is my second attempt to make this clip because I just lose my temper about halfway through. So this time I'm going to make an effort not to lose my temper, but I just cannot stay quiet. Who thinks of a protest on August 9th, which is a Saturday? I saw this post on my nephew's Facebook page. It said, General Strike, August 9th. And I'm like, right on, man. And I look at my calendar, and guess what? It's a Saturday. So I asked Suri, who came up with this idea? And it's some cat here on TikTok. Some self-important man going, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the fascists, and I'm sick of having all these different organizations, and we don't have any unity, and we need to have a general strike, and we need to be out in the streets. And one guy telling us all we're going to have a general strike, and everybody's like, oop, doop, doop, doop. A general strike on a Saturday when nobody is working on a Saturday. You think that is going to impact our government, dude? We needed to have a general strike on the Friday, close down businesses during the work week, and have protests on the weekends, which is my other pet peeve with the 50-51 people. They lost a gigantic opportunity to keep the momentum up. We had 8 million people in the streets on June 14th, and yet they chose to ignore July 4th and pick a Thursday to ask poor people to pick between their jobs and protesting the fascists in our government. This is just beyond comprehension. I'm beginning to think these people are actually interviewing for a job for Hakeem Jeffries or Jamie Raskin or some of the other corporate Democrats that are ho-humming their way into fascism. Like, literally, can you pick a movement that will make the least impact possible? A general strike on a Saturday, dude? That is like incomprehensibly ineffective. And a Thursday protest for the working poor? Give me a break. The working poor don't get paid. In fact, some of them might get fired if they showed up at a protest in the middle of the work week. I know when I was working for $14, $15 an hour, if I took off 3 days or 3 hours in the middle of on a Thursday, my boss would say, the door's right there. I can find somebody else. So this is just incomprehensible that the people that are like self-important within this resistance movement do not even think about their base, which is exactly why I think they're interviewing for Hakeem Jeffries, because the Democrats have made a practice of refusing to respond to what the needs of their base are. This is just incomprehensible. We need to demand that general strikes happen on the weekdays, so that if people are going to stay home to make a point, they stay home all day and get something done and plan for their bosses and say, look, I'm participating in this. And protests need to be on the weekends when the working poor do not have to pick between protesting and feeding their families. I agree with the general strike across the country, but we do not need a general strike on a Saturday. No wonder the Republicans are just steamrolling over our government. If these are the kind of harebrained ideas, we have the 50-51 movement picking protest days in the middle of the day because they want to honor John Lewis. Does anybody out there know really who John Lewis is? Does anybody understand why July 17th is an important day? No, and no. But the political activists do, and they're all self-important, and they pat themselves on the back about how smart they are. I mean, not to be irreverent here, I am definitely not an organizer, but I will tell you what, this is just an outrage. For this cat to go on TikTok and demand a general strike on a Saturday, and everybody in his comments are like, ooh, great idea, sign me up, I'm going to do it. Like, what are you going to do? Close down Walmart? Close down Target? You think that's going to impact our government? You think a shutdown on a Saturday is going to really work? And by the way, people need to know about the Homegrown Terrorist Act. You know what that thing says? Written by a Democratic woman who saw the Abu Ghraib torture tapes. She got out of the watching those torture tapes and created this act that says if you're an American and you create a general strike across America that affects American corporations, you could be considered a T word and the government could arrest you. So it is a risk to call for a general strike, and we definitely need to call for a general strike. But if we're going to do it, it should have been on August 8th. And this protest that's coming up on July 17th should have been, was July 19th, right? 2 days later on a Saturday. We need to just have a general rule and a general agreement, a so-called gentleman's agreement between all of us. General strikes are for Monday through Friday. Protests are for Saturdays or Sundays. People, we need to respond to the needs of the people, the victims of the fascist state, and not just keep kissing the ring of the corporate Democrats or the people who have the luxury to do whatever it is they want to do whenever they feel like it. It is beyond comprehension. I'm glad I made it through this last few minutes without losing my temper like I did before. But Americans need to understand we need general strikes, yeah. And if we're going to take the risk of having a general strike, let's make it have an impact. And that's a Monday through Friday thing where we shut down the banks, we shut down the offices, we shut down the schools, we shut down everything. A general strike. Calling for a general strike on a Saturday does what? Make people stop shopping? That's kind of like an Amazon strike, right? And this protesting in the middle of the week? Come on. Telling people, oh, you can just drive by if you can't take off work. You can drive by to participate. You think the general media, you think any legacy media is going to ooh, look at all the cars driving by the protest and those few hundred or maybe that 1,000 people standing in front of the Capitol. We need millions of people, you guys. How many people voted for Kamala Harris? 83 million people. We have yet to have even 10 million people in the streets objecting to the fascists literally zip tying little foster kids and sticking them in concentration camps. It is inhumane, and for senators like Chuck Grassley to act like, oh, we're just making this up while they all pretend the Epstein files don't exist is beyond comprehension. Talk about gaslighting 101. I am calling for the people that are organizing these protests and these strikes to think about the people, the victims of this whole fascist regime, and not force poor people into choosing between taking off work and protesting in the middle of the week. And if we're going to call for a general strike, it should be everybody except nurses and doctors, period. And we don't need to combine a general strike with stop shopping. It's so beyond comprehension. Because if you're going to have a general strike, there's nobody going to be in the stores to actually do the shopping, right? So you don't have to call for a stop shopping day along with a general strike. Because if the general strike is effective, no one's going to be in the stores. It's going to impact the government. And we all need to be prepared for the KKK member, the fascist in chief, to exercise his right to cause us the maximum harm using the Homegrown Terrorist Act written by Jane Harman after she saw the Abu Ghraib tapes, instead of calling for George Bush's impeachment and standing up for the rule of law in 2006. Less than 20 years later, and we now have a fascist government zip-tying children, deporting people to foreign nations where the poor people to foreign nations where they are being tortured using American tax dollars. We need to stand up, and we need more than 8 million people in the street, you guys. 83 million people voted for Kamala Harris. She lost by 1.87%. Trump did not have a landslide. This is bull. Get out in the streets and start organizing better. That's what I say.